I was in one school where there was a child on the carpet falling asleep, and he sort of crawled under a table, and I was told by the teaching assistant, oh yeah, just leave him because he's awake all night on his brother's iPad.
What things would need to be put in place to maybe try and improve the outcomes of kids and improve their behaviour, and in general then make things better for everyone, because obviously these kids are going to go out into the world. They're going to be your next doctors, they're going to be your next prime ministers, potentially first ministers, members of the Senate or members of Parliament, or whoever it is. You think we have a vested interest in making sure that they're going to be at least as well adjusted as possible.
Yes, and I think a lot of these, there's a lot of mental health. There's been an escalation in mental health deterioration, really. Children need boundaries. That's the number one rule of parenting, really. You've got to have boundaries. And as I said, they were being taught their rights and not their responsibilities. And it was getting to a place where you couldn't. You had to be careful about what you said about a child, even in a report. They've got to deal with. They've got to be able to take the rough with the smooth. They've got to be able to take on board criticism, take on board discipline, and they're now, like I said, the Welsh Government now beginning to realise that there is a big problem. Even another thing which I'd noticed in the intervening period after being away for 10 years was that some schools, whereas before you'd have certain schools with certain units like speech and language units, autistic units, there were even EBD units, which is emotional and behavioural difficulties. So there were children being put into units with these issues, and it shouldn't have got to this situation. And I don't really know what the answer is. I think people are beginning to realise that screen time is not helping children as well. I mean, I was in one school where there was a child on the carpet falling asleep, and he sort of crawled under a table, and I was told by the teaching assistant, oh yeah, just leave him because he's awake all night on his brother's iPad. And and when you see the recent initiative where they're offering, I think, £5,000 bursary to encourage students of colour to come into the teaching profession. I personally feel that there are so many children, sadly, that are lacking, who may not have a father living with them, or they're lacking a positive male role model in their lives.